Morning. Wow, that is a. Mm.
Yeah. I'm curious. 63.7 licensing for insurance license. I've taken a lot of those tests. Living real estate.
Did you do any life insurance stuff?
Yeah.
Got your security?
I had 63.
So you can sell all retirement products.
I'm not anymore.
Oh, I see.
I
But
did
at
it for
that
like
time,
23 years.
Yeah.
I worked for Principal Financial out of Des Moines, Iowa.
oh,
I was in retirement services. Like I didn't sell any insurance.
yeah.
But they made me have an insurance license because I worked with insurance.
We sold securities, right? Did you say, or
I
did you?
did, but I had the 6 and the 63 and the 7 took care of that.
I see.
But I didn't like sell life insurance or anything, but I had to know,
Yeah.
which was interesting. I enjoyed learning about it.
Did it affect your decisions as you've grown older as far as whole life versus annuities versus it did? Yeah. So do you believe in annuities or not?
I am a
You're a whole life believer,
whole life believer,
okay?
and I have a mix
Yeah.
of stuff. And it depends. Like my son, we've got a couple whole life policies we're saving for his college.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I've got a mixture of stuff.
Sure.
Got a mixture of stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
Come on. Got 2 minutes. This is
But did you, I mean, do you know what people, like, was it a roll-on or
no, it's an inhaler, like a Vicks inhaler.
Vicks inhaler? Is it something
Yeah.
you rub on your nose, or is it?
And then it acts just like a Vicks inhaler. Have you ever had a Vicks inhaler? You take the cap off and you put it in your nose, and you breathe that
You leave it
menthol.
up there?
Yeah, huh?
Leave it up there?
No. You just. I was kidding when I said leave one up
All
your
right, that's
nose.
fine.
Yeah, I was just joking around.
Well, I'm glad I clarified. I didn't want to walk
Yeah.
in here with what's stuck in my nose. All right.
Some of my students said they found many different study buddies. So apparently, there's companies trying to take off on some other companies' success. So be careful. Make sure you're getting the one with rosemary. But you can probably go into any department store and just get the oils. But who cares? Here we go. We're on page 33. You virtual students, you 20th edition students, just find the first page of Unit 3. This edition, the 21st edition, is like one paragraph off of the 20th edition. So it's not going to take you long to find me if I'm not exactly where I tell you I'm at. All right. On Unit 3, our learning objectives, we're going to identify various types of estates. We're going to explain the differences between liens and other encumbrances, and then we'll talk about limitations on private property rights. Let's turn the page. First of all, let me make a point. I got on my soapbox yesterday about the importance of studying. Guys, I didn't spend your money, so right now that's not a concern of mine. I just want you to see you come to fruition. That's all. And I was the worst student. Now I'm a know-it-all, but I was the worst student. I only crammed. I never studied until the night before. And I was fortunate enough to be able to get away with that for a long time. You can't do that in this. If you've done that before and managed to progress through your education, you are not going to be able to do that on this. So you want to attack every module. Every class I call a module. We had 2 chapters, but you want to attack them. Boom. Nail it, read it, damn it, until you got it memorized. Take the practice quizzes, look up words, because it will overwhelm you if you wait until the week before the exam. It would just completely overwhelm you. All right. Let's turn the page. Let me give you three words that are synonymous. I don't know if you feel the need to write them down. I don't think you should, but they're interest, right, and estate. If I have an interest in property, I have a right to that property, and the theory and the law and the courts have named my interest, my right, some type of estate. See, when I was taking this course for the first time, I thought an estate was a big house with a fence around it, like the show Dallas in the 80s. I don't know if y'all saw that. But an estate is actually a legal interest in real estate. And sometimes the word estate is tenancy. Right now, you're going to discover, I've already told you your state exam is going to be 120 questions. 80 of those are the questions that everybody around the country gets. It's called the national portion. And then 40 of your 120 will be Alabama law. See, it's kind of like this. Driving laws, 99% of driving laws are the same from state to state to state to state. But some states, you can't turn right on red. Some states have not criminalized texting and driving. Some states, you can't turn left on a one-way on a red. Some states have 100-mile-an-hour speed limits, Montana and Idaho. So 99% of real estate is the same nationwide. That's why you got 80 questions, national portion. And then 40 of how we do things may be particularly, that might be slightly different in Alabama. So I don't know if y'all have noticed this in your lifetime, but regionalism has caused different dialects, different words for the same thing, sometimes variations on the same thing. I'll give you examples. Soda and pop, same thing, depending on what region of the country you're in. Now, we don't call either one in the South. I call it a cold drink. But soda pop, same thing. And guys, everybody in the country gets the same exact 80 questions. They don't know if you're in Georgia or New Mexico, California. So when I give you multiple words for the same thing, it's because of that. And unfortunately, for one day out of your life, if I tell you there are three words that could mean the same thing, you got to know all damn three. Because they'll use this regional term in question 13. They'll use another regional term on question 42. Same thing, different words. So you don't have to write it down. There'll be a place where you can write what I just said down. But tenancy and estates are like soda and pop. A tenancy is an interest in real estate. We tend to associate the word tenant with renter, but a tenant is not just a renter. Nevertheless, let's get back down to this. I think you'll find this interesting, this class. But this is, you're going to hear me gripe about nerd words to the end, damn it. And I don't know why I still feel so strongly about it, because I passed the stupid test. But I do. There's no sense in it. We've been dragging 400- and 500-year-old words in a damn wheelbarrow around for no reason. No reason. I don't know why we can't modernize the language. It inhibits your learning, prevents us from doing what attorneys do. That's why they're keeping us out of their business. So you're going to see a lot of that starting today. A lot of these weird damn words that make me angry. Moving down page 34, look at the third paragraph, highlight freehold estate. Get past thinking, what does freehold mean? That's why I just had that 5-minute conversation. It meant something 400 years ago. We don't know. Don't try to figure the words out. Just know what they mean. In the left-hand margin, right above that little box, write owner, because that's what a freehold estate is. If you had a question that says Bobby has a freehold estate in 112 4th Court Southwest, Bobby owns the damn place. Nerds, they can't just say that. They got to nerd it up. So a freehold estate, I own it. Now look down to the next paragraph. They should have bolded it. I think they didn't out of mistake. A non-freehold estate. Highlight it. And then to the left, write tenant. If Sissy has a non-freehold estate in 1216 Panorama Trace, she's a damn tenant. Because if you looked up a non-freehold interest in a dictionary, it would say a non-freehold interest is an interest in property based on a period of time. Is that not what a lease is? I'm here from May 1 to April 30 next year. My interest is defined by time. So yeah, the nerds got to call it non-freehold estate. Me and you just call it tenant. A fee simple estate, you see that at the bottom of page 34. Again, I hesitate saying at the bottom of particular pages because some people have a 20th edition, you virtual students. Just, guys, just understand, I progress through the book, okay? Just find the next dead-gum paragraph. Keep looking. But in America, you see there, you can go ahead and highlight that first sentence. A fee simple estate is the highest interest in real estate recognized by law. It sounds so important. I remember being you and being a pre-licensed student and hearing my instructor saying that a billion times. First of all, we know what a fee is. It's what a professional charges, but it don't mean that here. We know what simple means. It's the opposite of complicated, but it don't mean that here. That's why I'm saying get over the words. Don't try to make sense of the definition based on the words. But after about 2 weeks of hearing my instructor saying fee simple is the highest form of interest you can have in real estate, I stayed after class one night and I said, what the hell does that mean? He said, it means I got all 5 sticks in my hand, Mark. I said, why in the hell haven't you been saying that for 2 weeks? I get that. So in other words, if I have leased my property out, you can't say I have a fee simple interest in real estate. So if Carol has a fee simple interest in 1219 Capitol Street, she got all 5 sticks in her hand. That's all. So if I have rented the property out, I don't have a fee simple interest because I don't have the highest interest recognized by law. If you can't possess what you own, trust me, you don't have the highest interest that law recognizes in real estate. So again, what I'm trying to prove to you emphatically often is that these are fairly elementary concepts behind these stupid words. Don't let the words be the gate that intimidates you. Open the damn gate. Fairly understandable, commonsensical, elementary concepts behind them. So we got fee simple out of the way. And I remember after 2 weeks in class, I went home the first night feeling good about things. I was like, hell yeah, I understand one thing. And then the next class, look at the next page. The instructors talk about fee simple absolute. I'm like, when the hell did vodka get involved? I had a tentative grasp on something until tonight. Well, I'm going to start talking to you about something that you may not be aware of, you may be aware of. If you own real estate right now, the law says you can put a deed condition or a condition on your deed. That's the way I should have said it. What are you talking about, Mr. Yarmer? You can limit, restrict, or define what future owners can or can't do with your property. A lot of people are amazed by that. Now, more often than not, the people that utilize this, the fact that the law allows them to do that, they do it for practical reasons. But I've seen kooky, weird deed conditions that didn't sound practical. You know, here's an example of how a deed condition could save you. You know, what if I live out on Alabama Rural Route 67? And I don't know if you know where that is. I just made that up. You know, a lot of country roads, there's just a house every 2 miles. And maybe I live on one of them rural routes in a house. And when I bought the house 20 years ago, I bought the acre on the right of me and I bought the acre on the left of me. You know, little buffers to keep somebody from potentially building right up on me. So here I'm in church one day waiting on preaching to get started, talking to Regina in the pew behind me. And I'm like, you know, my kids are 18 now, and me and the old lady didn't do good saving money for their college. I don't know how I'm going to get them started. And Regina says, you own the acre on each side of you, dummy. Sell one. I was like, oh my God, she's right. So I sell the acre on one side of me. I get a little money and I get my kids in school, you know. And the next thing you know what they don't have out in the country a lot? Zoning. Next thing I know, there's a cinder block strip joint right beside me where the minimum age stripper is 40. My God, I'm not even trying to be cute. That can happen. Can you imagine that happening in real life? You got a damn cinder block strip joint right beside your house. Now, you can think I'm trying to be cute. Stuff like this happens. So can you see me selling this property and putting a decondition to say this property be used for residential purposes only? That's a nice practical restriction limitation, right? But I've seen, doing research, I've seen deconditions that say no structure on this property will ever be painted red. Maybe a previous owner was superstitious. Who knows? But as long as it doesn't break the law, it's legit. I've seen a decondition say there'll never be a fence placed on this property. Who knows why somebody would have had an issue with that? But don't put a damn fence on the property is all I got to say. As long as it don't break the law, it's legit. This is not the first time we're going to talk about deconditions, but now that I have set up deconditions in your mind, we can progress. So go back to fee simple absolute. If you hear Mark has a fee simple interest in a property, that means I got all 5 sticks. We established that a moment ago. But if you hear that Mark has a fee simple absolute interest, that means I got all 5 sticks and there are no deconditions. It's kind of like icing on the cake. You know what I mean? Kind of like a nice little bonus. That'd be like me needing to find a woman at this time in my life and looking for one with good credit. Y'all take your meds after class. Y'all are frozen. Y'all are Botox frozen. Fee simple absolute. I got all the sticks and no deconditions. Just gravy, icing on the cake. It's a nice coincidence. Fee simple absolute. So we got that down. And I don't know if you wrote all the sticks. If you did, hopefully you did.
Yes.
Fee simple absolute, all the sticks, no deconditions. But now look in the middle of the page, or you virtual students, wherever you are, just keep coming down. If you say fee simple to feasible or fee simple determinable, that means I got all 5 sticks and there are deconditions. So watch this. Let me put it up on the whiteboard. Fee simple absolute, 5 sticks. Fee simple, 5 sticks. Absolute. No conditions. Fee simple, defeasible, or determinable. Conditions. So let's continue talking.
Those 2 words mean the same thing.
There is a slight distinction between fee simple defeasible and fee simple determinable. I do not think it is necessary to explain the distinction for you to be able to get these questions right. Yeah, good question. Here's what I want you to do. Look in the very middle of the page, but specifically in the fee simple determinable paragraph. And highlight the 3 italicized words that says possibility of reverter. Because here's what the law says. And guys, first of all, let's establish a couple of things. I own a piece of property right now, let's say, and I want to put a deed condition on it, let's say. That can be a perpetual deed condition set to last for infinity. Or I could put a chronological date on it. This deed condition will go away April 27th, 2039. Or I could say this deed condition will go away when my mama passes away. Okay? So it can be set to expire or not. So we got that out of the way. And the deed condition can be put on by any, if it's a perpetual deed condition, they may put it on the property in the 30s. It don't matter. You better honor it. Because if you don't, and the person that put the deed condition on it discovers that you violated it, or the heirs of the person that put it on discovers you violated it, they're going to take you to court. And then the possibility of reverter says, if the courts determine that you violated the condition, they will take title from you. They'll pull it out from under you like a damn rug, because now it's going to revert to the previous owner or the heirs of the previous owner. You will lose title to the property if you violate the condition and it's exposed in a court of law. So it's pretty strong. You don't want to violate the deed condition. I'll give you an example. Talking to an older man. Guys, when I came into the business, I told you I was 21, actually. And I hung out, all the dudes I hung out with were over 50 to 70. That was my gang. You know why? Because they looked sharp as hell. Their cars were sharp. They had stories. They had advice. They had tips. They always had a pocket full of money. And they always willing to buy my damn lunch. Because I'd say, I want to be a good man and a good father, and I want you to tell me as much as you can about how to do both. And that's all a dude over 50 wants to hear from a young buck. They'll take you under their arm. Point I'm trying to arrive at is this gentleman told me, he said, Mark, in early 70s in Center Point, no Huffman, I was representing a buyer, and we were wanting to buy a property to build a shopping center. Now, if you need financing on a shopping center, typically the lender is going to require you to already have commitments from two anchors. Usually the anchors in a shopping center are a grocery store and a drugstore, because they want you to have some cash flow the minute you get finished building it so you can make the damn mortgage payment. Well, they discovered on a title preliminary search that there was a deed condition on the property. And the deed condition said that this property will never be used for the manufacture, wholesale, or distribution of alcohol. This was a very common condition that came about what period of time in our country's past? Prohibition. And I guarantee you, when Dixie ain't gonna set up if they can't sell beer and wine. So this was the early 70s, and the man said, you know, Mark, he said, my attorney happened to put family trees together as a hobby. Can you imagine how hard that would have been pre-internet, for God's sakes? Point being, he said, Mark, he knew how to get in touch with people. He knew how to find people. He knew how to locate, how to run them down. We found 17 heirs of the man that put that deed condition on. And we had to pay $300 to all 17. Now, you don't think that's a lot of, in 1972, $300 was about $1,800. I think the multiplier is 6. 1,800 times 17, you know. But they had to do it because they had to, those heirs had to quit claim their interest by virtue of their grandfather putting the condition on the deed to enable to move forward. The possibility of reverter. Let's listen to the language. Fee simple to feasible. If Andrea has a fee simple to feasible estate in a property, that means there's a deed condition that exists, and if she violates it, her interest in the property could be defeated in a court of law. Possibility of reverter. Fee simple determinable. Bobby's interest in that home is determined upon whether or not he honors any existing limitations, restrictions, conditions. So determined to feasible, the words kind of tell you there's a decondition. Okay. So that's why we got this. Fee simple, that's just brief, got all 5 sticks. But if you want to go further and clarify it more, no deconditions with my sticks, deconditions with my sticks. You know, the conditions don't always have to do with the property. I am so grateful that this happened to me 2 years ago because it gives me a wonderful example to use in class. A woman called me, Mr. Yarber, you don't know me. Somebody that I know knows you, said you might be able to help me. I got a real estate situation. And trust me, guys, the minute you start teaching pre-license, all of a sudden you're an expert. And I ain't. And I told her that. But I said, you took the time to call me. We might as well see if I can help you. So I said, what you got going on? She said, well, my daddy died a year ago. And it's been going through probate, his estate. And he left me his home. But after a year in probate, my attorney calls me today and tells me he found out Dad put a condition on the property that title will remain in my name to the home as long as I remain an unmarried woman. She said, that ain't fair, Mr. Yarber. I said, what damn world did you grow up in? Fair. But I felt the need to ask some more questions. And by doing so, I found out she'd been married and divorced 6 times. This was her daddy's way of stopping the damn cycle. You know, she wasn't good at it. Called tough love. I said, ma'am, life's all about choices. You can get married and lose title to the property or live in sin and go straight to hell, but enjoy the home. I did not tell her that. But do y'all see, that is an example of a decondition that had nothing to do with the tangible property. It just had to do with her marital status. Now, I've had some students tell me there's a couple of questions on deconditions on the exam. One of them, I just told you. They're all legit as long as they don't break the law. There's only been one decondition struck down by the Supreme Court in our history, and it was a decondition that said no Native American will ever occupy this property. That was discriminatory, therefore struck down. So knowing that all deconditions, no matter how weird, spooky, superstitious, they're all legit as long as they don't break the law, okay? And then, what did I hear? Okay, here you go. What if my peepaw, I didn't call my grandfather peepaw, but what if my grandfather in 1958 sold a property and he put a decondition on it that this property would be used for residential purposes only? That's fair. It's pretty simple. But you know how sides of town change over the years? You know, this might have been a commercial side, shopping center, library, service station. Now it's 2 subdivisions. Or the opposite. Could have been residential subdivisions in the 50s. Now we got a shopping center, library. Y'all see what I'm saying? So maybe this was a residential area in 1958. Reasonable decondition for my grandfather to put on it. But now it's a commercial area. So there's a question that says, in this instance, what takes precedence? Zoning or the decondition? The decondition. So you know what you can do with that property? Not a damn thing. Maybe put a truck, some pumpkins on it in October. Maybe some firewood in the winter, you know, but you ain't going to be able to put that. So anticipate that. The decondition will take precedence over the zoning. Okie dokie. We continue to progress. Let's hit life estate. I want y'all to pause on this. This is not rare, life estates, but not uncommon. And guys, some of this stuff may be completely new to you and kind of weird because of your life in the past you've chosen to go. Some of you have worked in business and been involved with things, and some of this is making sense. It doesn't matter. All I want you to do is see the elementary behind it. But let's talk about a life estate. You know how I tell, you know how I teach. I try to set up with a story. Let's say my grandmother's 76. She calls me one day. Mark, how you doing? I said, I'm good, Grandma. She says, Mark, I think I want to deed my house to you. I think I want to move into a retirement center. She said, y'all don't come see me and y'all don't call me. I think I want to move into a retirement center for the social dynamics. And, that gets a damn knot in your throat. You're like, I understand, Grandma. So she deeds her house to me. She moves into a retirement center. And she's there for 2 years. And she calls me 2 years later. And she says, get me the hell out of here. I don't know if y'all know anything about retirement centers. Y'all women take that click crap to the grave. She said, Mark, there's 4 tables in the lunchroom they won't let me sit at. They don't invite me to the bingo because I cursed one night. It's like damn high school, man. She said, you still got my house? I said, I do, Grandma. So at this point, my grandmother's 70. I deed my grandma the house back to her, but I'm going to deed her a life estate. Remember the word estate means interest? So her interest in the property is going to be determined on her life. Now, y'all, I take baby steps, okay? Don't try to anticipate anything I'm saying. Be patient with the way I explain. Anytime I deed someone a life estate, my grandmother is going to be called, look at the 3rd paragraph under life estate. She's going to be called a life tenant. Now, guys, at this point, please understand, a tenant is not just a renter. That's what you've heard your whole life. A tenant is someone who has an interest in property. Now, does a renter have an interest in property? Yeah, the right of possession for a period of time. So it's not wrong that a tenant's not a renter. It's just a tenant can be many things. So we're going to call my grandmother the life tenant. Now, anytime, if I can have everybody's attention, anytime I deed someone a life estate, I must pull back another deed. And I have 2 choices of what kind. I can deed myself an estate in reversion because, see, understand, guys, if it's only based on her life, I have to steer where the property is going to go when her life is over. And I got 2 directions of where to steer it. So I deed myself an estate in reversion. We're going to go to the book and highlight after my story. So I deed myself an estate in reversion. That just means when my grandmother passes, it reverts back to me or my heirs if I'm no longer alive. Or maybe my daughter is 20, a young adult. I think perfect timing. So I deed my daughter an estate in remainder. My grandmother dies, it goes to my daughter or my daughter's heirs if she's no longer alive. So those are the 2 directions, either back to me or some designated person that we're going to call a remainderman. So now you can look over here, top of page 37. You see remainder and reversion. Those are the 2 choices. If I deed you a life estate, I must pull back either an estate in remainder or an estate in reversion. One of those 2 choices. I have to steer it somewhere when my grandma passes. Now, I'm reading through with this subject. I'm taking baby steps, adding little ingredients along the way. Now, my grandmother, while being a life tenant, has all of the normal privileges and obligations of home ownership, except for 2 things. A, she can't will it, and why? Of course she can't. That's why we call it a damn life estate. The reason she can't will it is because there's an estate reversion holder or an estate remainder holder. You follow my thinking? So to be able to will it would defeat the whole concept of the life estate. So she can't will it, and she can't commit waste. That's a damn nerd word for she can't significantly alter or destroy the property. Why? Because somebody got a future interest, the estate in reversion or the estate in remainder. She can't affect their future interest. So my grandmother is a life tenant. We've discussed the fact that tenant does not mean renter all the time. She's a life tenant. She has all of the normal privileges and obligations of homeownership with those two exceptions. She can't will, she can't commit waste. Did y'all hear me say she has all of the normal privileges of homeownership and privilege? So 6 months after I deed my grandmother the life estate, can she sell the property? Did I not just tell y'all she has all of the normal privileges and obligations of homeownership? It's so fun being a know-it-all. Commit waste. Because that's a normal damn privilege of homeownership, isn't it? Okay, so don't contradict your damn self. You just sat there 3 times. I had you reinforce it to me. Hold on, bear with me. I'm taking baby steps. So guess what my grandmother cannot sell? What she don't own. And you know what she don't own? Anything beyond her life. So if she sells the property to somebody and then dies a week later, the person she sold the property to's interest is over. Because the person that bought the property from my grandmother bought what my grandmother had, and my grandmother had an estate based on her life. Do you understand that?
Yep.
So this person would be up a creek. Okay, they would be up a creek. Now I'm going to continue talking about this. Just to understand the principles as we take small baby steps. Now, more often than not, life estates are in families. You know, when Mama dies, it's going to go to Aunt June. When Aunt June dies, it's going to go to Sissy. You know what I mean? It's just kind of keep it in the family, life estates. You ever seen out in the country, 5 damn families taking up 6 acres, 5 houses, 2 driveways. A lot of life estates. Now, what if I deed my life estate to my grandmother, but I don't want to base it on my grandmother's life. I want to base it on my cousin Ricky's life. Look at that pure Autry V. You see that right below life estate? Pure Autry V. Highlight the first sentence. A life estate may be based on the lifetime of a person other than the life tenant. So my grandmother would be the life tenant, and we're continuing with my example. The grandmother would be the life tenant, but I'm basing the life on cousin Ricky because cousin Ricky might be in a coma, and the doctors say he ain't got but 3 months to live, whatever. Families, they got their own concocted life situations. So if someone other than the life tenant, my grandmother, is who the life's based on, that's where that pure Autry V, that's a French term for the life of another. Now, admit this to me, my gang, I can't see y'all. I can't get any recognition from you. I can't see your faces. My admin sees your faces. Do y'all have a tentative grasp on this? Okay, good, because that's all you're supposed to have. You're never going to have a full, complete, confident grasp on any of this crap. But as long as you've got a tentative grasp, that's the roots taking hold. And they'll grow a little deeper if you water it and if you continue to feed it. But all you need to do is get them roots in the ground. Okay, so as long as we got about an inch of roots in the ground, we can progress. So moving down from remainder and reversion, you see legal life estate. If they put the words legal in front of life estate, then they are not even talking about what I just spent 15 minutes talking about. A legal life estate in your left-hand margin. Well, just go down to the bottom of the page. Highlight homestead. If you own a home right now, I have a feeling you have applied for your homestead exemption. Why? Because it cuts your property taxes in half. That's why. Now, you'll see in that first paragraph under legal life estate, they reference some obsolete, outdated concepts, dower and currency. This used to be, when I married a woman, her father would give me 8 cows and 2 goats and, all that kind of crap. That stuff don't exist in the modern day. But the homestead exemption, you may think it just cuts your taxes in half. Let me tell you why it exists. We live a different life than people in our past did. Okay? And in the 1800s, about 2% of the country had money. The rest of the country was poor. And the rest of the country farmed and cleaned and slaved and worked hard. And women did not work. And women had 10, 15 kids because you had to have workers. They treated their uterus like a T-shirt cannon. Nevertheless, the man would die, leaving the woman and the 17 kids without a home because the creditors would come take the house. Women had no marketable skills. So the courts began to see, this is an issue. Now, the homestead exemption does not prevent a creditor from taking the home. What I want you to write in your left-hand margin, right there to the left of where you highlighted homestead, protects home. There's about 6 words I'm going to tell you. Protects home from unsecured loans / creditors. Protects home from unsecured loans / creditors. Guys, anytime you hear secured or unsecured, that means collateralized. A secured loan is collateralized, and an unsecured loan is not collateralized. Guys, when I got out of the service, I was married and had a kid, and I was scared of life and broke as a joke and dumb as a hammer. And why did I just tell you all that? I don't even know what the point I was heading toward. My mind went back to that time. Oh yeah. No, I'd get behind, and I needed $200 to pay the power bill. You can go without power if you ain't got no kid. When you got a kid, you got to do some crap, that you normally wouldn't have to do. So, I didn't have no credit. I was young. So they had these consumer finance companies. I don't know if they exist today. I think pawn shops have replaced them with car title pawn. But used to, you could go get an unsecured loan for about $400, pay 36% interest. That's the kind of creditor that could not come get your home. Okay? Now, bank, will you collateralize a loan with your damn home? They're going to come get your home. But the homestead exemption protects your home from unsecured creditors like that. Turning the page. So we introduced the concept of encumbrances to you yesterday. So let's talk about them more. We established that a lease is an encumbrance to the owner. I'm talking out of turn. You don't see it right there, but we established why. We talked about a lien. You see private restrictions on the use of real estate, top of the page 39, or whatever the couple of you virtual students, just keep moving down. Covenants, conditions, and restrictions. You see in parentheses, CC and R. We have our bundle of rights, y'all. Okay? We got our right to use, possess, encumber, exclude others, and dispose of. But our rights are subject to public restrictions and private restrictions. Public restrictions are zoning. Private restrictions are CC and R. We already talked about conditions, didn't we? That was the first 15 minutes of the class. So let's talk about covenants. Covenants and conditions are fraternal twins. Now, fraternal twins they're not identical, right? Fraternal, okay. They're fraternal twins. I remember being a kid and asking my father, why are all houses in a subdivision pretty much the same house? Slight variation. I think he said, shut the hell up and get in the yard. But as an adult, y'all ain't never had a parent talk to y'all like that, have you? We were heard and not listened. A developer develops a subdivision. He cannot afford to trust that people understand the concept of homogeneity when it comes to subdivisions. In order to have stable value, you have to have homogeneity. Can you imagine a neighborhood, a little $20,000 log cabin, $3 million palace, $40,000 mobile home? Be wacko. So to have stable value, within neighborhoods, you have to have that homogeneous one. So when a developer develops a subdivision, subdivides it into lots, begins selling the lots to individuals, they can't trust that the consumer will understand this. So they have to put covenants on the deeds that restrict, define, limit what the people can do. So this is just what a developer is doing that you and I can do with our property. Now, half the covenants in a subdivision are redundant. They reiterate zoning, minimum square footage, setback, sidelines. The rest of the covenants are usually to protect the aesthetics of the neighborhood. In fancy neighborhoods, they got architectural control. I mean, you have to damn submit your plans, and they got to approve them. But like a common covenant, that everybody uses the same kind of mailbox. Have you ever noticed that some subdivision, everybody got the same exact mailbox, but that's not true in all subdivisions. A common covenant in a subdivision is you can't have a secondary structure in the backyard. And this is to prevent people from building unsightly sheds for their tools, And then some neighborhoods, if they allow you to build a secondary structure, it has to appear as the home. So you'd have to put the same color brick if it's a brick home, same color roof tiles, etc. Now you violate a covenant, the neighborhood association can sue you, and then you go to court, and you might be fined and forced to rectify the issue. But you don't lose the damn property. So I just gave you the clear distinction between a covenant and a condition. You violate a condition that a previous owner put on it, you lose the property. Possibility of reverter. I violate a covenant, they just take me to court, might fine me, might force me to fix whatever the problem was. So covenants, conditions, and restrictions, it's a concept. Y'all write this down. Dusty Slay is a real popular comedian right now. He's from Opelika. He talks about growing up in a mobile home park. One time he got a brick thrown through his window. He picked up the brick and there was a note on it that said, "Cut your grass. Mobile Homeowners Association." Man, y'all just ain't in the mood. I don't mind. Mobile Homeowners Association. Cut your grass. Brick through the window. Not an email. Yeah, not a note in the mailbox. Brick through the window. Mobile Homeowners Association. But we're moving down. We're on easements. Highlight the first sentence. Usually the first sentence is a dead giveaway to highlight because it's a good short definition. An easement is the right to use the land of another for a particular purpose. More often than not, it is for the purpose of getting to and from a road. For a variety of reasons, people come into possession of property. You either buy it, it was gifted to you, somebody left it to you in a will, whatever, and you are landlocked, meaning you can't get to the road. Like I just said, the courts have said within reason, you're entitled to a right to get to the road. So look at the illustration. You see lot A, lot B. You see the trees in front of lot B. Let's assume that those are, thick woods, impenetrable. So let's say I keep talking about people dying and leaving me something. I ain't never been left crap. Have y'all, damn it? God, I can't. I wish somebody would die and leave me something. Can't imagine what that feels like. My dad died. All he did was leave us alone. So lot B, let's say I inherit lot B from somebody, and I notice, I don't know how in the hell Pawpaw was getting to the road. Maybe he didn't have a car. He was riding a bicycle or a horse. I don't know. So I go knock on lot A's door, and I introduce myself to the man that comes to the door. I'm your new neighbor, I say. And, got woods in front of me. And I was just wondering if you could let me cut some ruts on the edge of your property so I could get to the road. And the man that I meet at the front door of lot A, he says, I'm glad you come over and met me. Let's go downtown to my favorite sandwich shop and let's get some lunch. Then we'll go over to my attorney's office and I'll deed you an easement and let you cut some ruts right along the edge of my property. You know what? Problem solved. I got a nice new neighbor, and he was very cooperative and understanding. But what if my neighbor says, come hell or high water, boy, will you cross my property? And you get a lot of that. Well, the law says I can take the neighbor that offers me the shortest and most direct route to the road. And that would happen to be Lot A in this illustration. So I take them to court. Maybe I have to show the court some drone footage, a plat, some pictures. And the judge looks at Lot A and says, sorry, but I'm going to deed Mr. Yarborough an easement to cross your property. First of all, I see the word appurtenant. Easement, appurtenant. See it? The word appurtenant means attached to. So now the easement that has come about as a result of the courts, it belongs to the earth. So if Lot B sells to somebody else, they ain't got to renegotiate another easement or go through that legal process. They got the easement. And if Lot A sells to somebody, the new owner can't be blocking that little path to the road. The easement now belongs to the earth. That's what the word appurtenant means. Now, if you look at the illustration, there's some small print beneath the illustration. The owner of Lot B has an easement appurtenant across Lot A to gain access to his property from the road. That's easy to understand. We talked about it. The words make sense. Here's what you got to learn for the exam. Nerd words. Lot B is dominant. Lot A is servient. So I want you to write servient in the gray box, Lot A, and dominant in the Lot B box. Again, don't try to make sense of the words. Dominant ain't got nothing to do with S&M. Now, y'all, I was y'all one day, and as I was preparing to go take the state exam, I said, I'll be damned, that's going to be a quarter flip at the exam site. I'm going to forget. Is it Lot A was dominant or servient? Is Lot B dominant or servient? And guys, I'm telling you, you'd be shocked if you knew how many people made it 69. So I was like, I came up with some little mnemonic tricks, I don't know if y'all do things like that. So I thought to myself, is Lot A serving a need that his neighbor Lot B has? Well, it was a rhetorical question. Of course, the answer is yes. But you see, the point is, you see how I'm remembering this? Lot A is serving a need that his buyer, but Lot B has. This table is my favorite table so far. Y'all play along now. God bless you. Wrong as hell, but 40. Easement and gross. Look at it. It's gross. Look at the illustration. It's gross. So a utility easement is an easement in gross, or sometimes called a gross easement. It's gross. It looks gross. All they're good for is four-wheeling and motocross. Kids taking their bikes up there and getting killed. So moving down the page. Look at that easement by necessity. So check this out, y'all. Let me give you a little illustration here. Does anybody have any idea what I'm drawing? It's a little lot, and I, the owner of this is the road right here. I, the owner, chose only to develop the front half of this property, and I put 4 little strip shopping center. These are slanty parking spaces. And this is landscaping in front, in between the road and the parking lot. Now, 5 years later, I decide to sell this back half. It's separate now. And he builds a big old warehouse, you know, for his company, whatever. Do you see where I sold this man landlocked property?
Yes.
Thank you for saying yes, because it's right there in front of you, damn it. If I sell you landlocked property, I'm the one that created the hardship. I have to give you an easement. And it's called what? Easement by necessity. I created the need. The need didn't just come about. I created the need. Therefore, I have to give you an easement. Easement by necessity. Have y'all ever noticed? I don't know if, you know, shopping centers sell what they call pads. You ever notice in big parking lots and shopping centers, they'll have a bank out in the parking lot, or those are pads. Have you ever noticed some you can go into that pad, that bank, that whatever, that business, and you can flow through the parking lot in and out of it, but some they got it curved to where you can't flow into the parking lot? That all has to do with easements. But an easement by necessity. Now you'll look within that paragraph, italicized, you see the word ingress and egress. Would you please tell me why the nerds can't get down with enter and exit? That don't make sense, does it?
Yeah.
I mean, that would be like me owning an Italian restaurant here in Birmingham and putting Polynesian language for the men and women's restroom. Why not just put men and women? Is Polynesian a language? I don't even know. That was stupid. Ingress and egress, enter and exit. Easement by prescription. At this point, I want us to save our page 40 because we're going to be coming back, but I want us to flip to page 93. And then after this little, you know what? We need to take a break. This is a mouthful, and I don't want to cut it off after 3 minutes. So let's go ahead and take our first break. I've got, hold on. Y'all, I got 10:57. Let's do 11:12. All right. So enjoy your break. See you back here in a minute. All right, y'all, I'm tardy. Sorry about that. Here we go. And hopefully you can hear my loud voice if you're not sitting at the computer, virtual students. You know, like some TV channels, they got the person doing the deaf in the corner. I'm going to have a person in the corner just shout what I'm saying for the hard of hearing. All right, we're on chapters 4. We're on chapters 4. The guy in the corner. But literally, we are at the bottom of page 40. Again, you virtual students, you unit 20, just find where it says easement by prescription, and then you'll be where we're at. And then I told you what we're going to do is kind of save our place here. Go to page 93. You can in fact, write page 93 down there. You'll want to revisit it when you're studying. I'll show you why. Because easement by prescription's fraternal twin. Well, let me find 93. Easement by prescription's fraternal twin. Oh, wait. It's not. Yeah. Bottom of page 93. Again, if adverse possession, for you cats on unit 20, the book, just find adverse possession somewhere around 93. Shouldn't be that much far off. But here's the thing. Let's talk about adverse possession. It's out of pocket, but since it's related, I want to discuss it. Now, you may have heard of squatters' rights or squatters. A squatter owns somebody's property without their permission. Now, squatting used to happen a whole lot before cars and airplanes. You could build a log cabin on a property, and maybe it was a wealthy man that owned thousands of acres, and you live an entire life on their property, and they never even were aware of it. But let's say, I use this example so much, but nobody's ever died and left me anything again. Let's say my granddad left me a property in northeast Georgia, up around the Helen area. It's gorgeous. And, but I was 14. So my parents quietly paid the property taxes on the property he left me until I was 20. Then they say, you're 20, you're a man now. You paying the property taxes on this. We're stopping. So, within a year, I get married and I look at my new bride and I say, why don't we go to Northeast Georgia and look at that little piece of undeveloped property that my grandfather left me? We might like it. We might want to move up here. So we arrive in Northwest Georgia. We GPS, we find the property, and there's a mobile home with a sidewalk and a driveway and a swing set and youngins playing in the yard. I go knock on the door and I introduce myself and I say, I'm not here to stir things up. I'm not a big a-hole, but you're on my property. It's got to have been a mistake or something. And they look at you like you're crazy. And they've been there 24 years. Now let's fast forward this scenario to a court of law. Look at the bottom here. If the squatters can prove to the courts these 5 criteria, they were there open, obvious to anyone who looks. In other words, not hiding. Notorious, known by others. If you'd ask the preacher, where's the Yarbers live? He'd say 4th house down on the right. Continuous, meaning uninterrupted for a period of time. Every state has their own period of time. Alabama's is 20 years. You don't need to know that. Don't write it down. You don't need to write down crap you don't need to know because I'm already going to be shoveling crap into your head. I shouldn't have said something, Mark. Damn. All right. Hostile means without the owner's permission. An adverse, against the true owner's right of possession. If they can prove this criteria, the judge is going to look at me and say, Mr. Yarber, I'm sorry, but you just lost title to this property. The squatters have now acquired title. Now, honestly, y'all, I have never agreed with squatters' rights. Just because I lend you my winter coat don't mean after 2 years, it's yours. Give it back. You know, I spent $400 on that winter coat. But hell, in real estate, you squat on it for long enough, you can get it. Now, here's what I enjoy about this book. And y'all know I talk about nerds. I got nerds in my family and friends. I'm jealous of nerds, honestly. But they made an acronym, UNCA. Nerds couldn't see Nacho. Had to come up with UNCA, for God's sakes, which just validates what I've been saying about the damn nerds. They can't even create an acronym that's a regular word. Nacho, that's too easy. Red, white, and blue America will understand that. Let's call it UNCA, for God's sakes. Nevertheless, let's go back to page 40. We're at easement by prescription. Okay. Well, every state has a different period of time. One of my students said, how long does the squatter have to sit on the land? Every state has a different period of time. Alabama's is 20 years. Yep. Perhaps. And you talking about in the legal fight? One of my students said, did the person who owned it ever win in that situation against the squatter? I would imagine so. If you failed to meet the whole criteria as a squatter, yeah, then you would not be able to successfully acquire title by adverse possession. But let's go back to easement by prescription on page 40, bottom of the page. I told you it's adverse possessions fraternal twin, meaning not identical. So me and my bride, we're going to Northeast Georgia, and we're using the GPS. We get there, and there's not a house with a swing set and a sidewalk. There's ruts running across my property. So I look at my new bride, and I say, well, apparently somebody has discovered a shortcut across our property. And what a coincidence, here comes a pickup. So I get in the middle of the ruts. He stops, I walk around, he rolling his window down. Has anybody in here ever seen somebody roll a window down? Man, I remember when power windows was an extra. Got electric windows. He's rolling his window down. I stick my hand in, I introduce myself. I said, this is my property. I've come here to discover it for the first time, and I've noticed some of y'all done found a shortcut. I ain't an a-hole. I ain't trying to stir things up, but I'm going to have to ask you to find another route. And this man looks at me like I'm crazy, because not only has him and many others been using the route, been doing it for many years. So we fast forward to a court of action, a legal court, court of law. Where'd I get action? A legal action. If I meet the same UNCA criteria, I don't acquire title to the land, which is ownership. I acquire the permanent right to continue using it, which is an easement by prescription. One you own, one you just get to continue using. There is a difference. Easement by prescription. Now, prescriptive easement also exists in like subdivisions. When a developer develops a subdivision, who do you think owns the road for a number of years? The developer. The developer builds the road. The developer must maintain the road for a number of years. But then I think in Birmingham Metro, it's 10 years. But then after 10 years, because the public's been using the road, who becomes the owner of the road? The government. Therefore, they must maintain it. But I want you to know easement by prescription, adverse possession, fraternal sister, twins. Moving on, terminating an easement. Guys, it's not important that you know these bullets to get questions right. It's just helping complete the picture, the concept, the why. How can it terminate? We want to look at the lot A and lot B on the previous page, but why would an easement terminate when the need no longer exists? Well, why would the need no longer exist? Well, the next bullet says, when either of the lots buy the other lot. If lot B bought lot A, then they don't have to have permission to cross somebody else's property. Or the another one says, by release of the right of easement. What if Lot B finally said, I'm going to clear out some damn trees and build my own driveway? Now he don't need the easement. Or I abandonment. Maybe Lot B moves off, still owns the property, but he's been gone for a number of years. It's abandoned. So again, I just want you to see the common sense, the logic. So check it out. One of the Anka was without permission, right? So you see license. Check this out, y'all. This is the God's honest truth. I'm going to try to stay similar stories, but versions of it. Got that northeast Georgia property. Maybe it's 10 acres, perfect for hunting land. So me and my buddy go up there to do some hunting, and we find a man and his son doing some hunting. And we say, sir, y'all going to have to find somewhere else to hunt. This is my property. And the man says, me, my son, and my grandson been hunting this property for a number of years. What the hell are you talking about? They could acquire the permanent right to continue hunting my land. Okay? So how can I stop that? All I got to do to prevent you from meeting the Anka is give you permission. The minute I acknowledge the fact you're doing this, I interrupt the period of time. Do you understand? So if I start selling hunting licenses on my property, what is a license? Permission, isn't it? Which prevents the chain of time from evolving for them to acquire the permanent right to continue using it. So for this very reason, you'll have one question on your exam about a license. And what is a license? Personal privilege to enter the land of another for a specific purpose. And the beauty of it is not only is it permission, hell, it's revocable permission. Y'all keeping up with Alabama basketball? Shoot. Friday night, me and the fellas, a little brandy, a little bourbon, some cigars, and some CBD. Yeah, we're going to get wild. All right, turning to page 42, encroachments. You know what that is. The word tells you. You done built your fence 18 inches onto my property. Or an encroachment doesn't have to touch your property. It could be a roof line that goes over the property line, right? Doesn't have to be physically touching the property. Encroachment. Liz Pendens. You see there in the paragraph, litigation pending. Here's the deal with this, guys. I don't know if I want to talk about this now or wait until another chapter. I do. I don't want to bring this up right now. Let me sneeze. That's probably the fourth time I have sneezed out loud in 3 years. Liz Pendens, I'm going to go more into depth because it's important and it deserves more, just not right now. Liz Pendens, if I go to the courthouse and I pull a property up, I can see if there's any liens, right? But I may pull a property up and I don't see any liens. But figuratively speaking, on the microfiche, a red flag pops up, a warning. Y'all like that? Mark, be careful with this property if you plan on buying it, because the dude that owns it is involved in a pending lawsuit right now. Now, why do I need to be forewarned of that? Here's why. Do you know a lot of people that are being sued know damn well they're going to lose? It's just a matter of time. Like, did you ever know you was going to get your ass whipped when your parents got home? It was just a matter of time. You know, you'd screwed up. They found out. So what do people who are being sued, they know they're going to lose, they know there's going to be a big money judgment come against them. They try to sell all of their stuff to their family and friends. So the day they lose in court, they look across the courtroom and go, I ain't got nothing. Hey, come on. You can't squeeze blood from my turnip. So that's why the warning's up there. What if I buy the property and 2 days later, after I buy the property, a lien comes against it as a result of the pending lawsuit that he was involved in at the very time? So we'll talk about Liz Pendens more. It deserves to be talked about more. But right now, I just want you to know, if I'm on the microfiche in the courthouse pulling up a property and the owner is involved in a pending lawsuit, it's going to warn me of that fact. So now moving down the page, we established a moment ago that our bundle of rights, our inherent rights to our property, are subject to restrictions. So let's pull up the whiteboard. You got the public restrictions. And you got the private restrictions. Public restrictions are called police powers. You see, right? That's where we're at in the book. Police is not somebody in a uniform. It is a generic word that means government authority. Police powers means nothing specifically. What police powers means is, what police powers are zoning and building codes. Those are the specific police power. This is PWR. That's a R. I abbreviate a lot of words. PWR. Police powers. Zoning and building codes. Those are the specific to police powers. Private restrictions are the C, C, and R that we spent the first half of the class going over. The covenants, the conditions, and the restrictions. But what I want you to do, as soon as you get through taking a little bit of notes you're taking, and we're going to go over this again, okay, is the third sentence under police powers. And I want you to put a star to the left of it because this is going to be on the exam. State's authority is passed on to municipalities through legislation called enabling acts. In other words, okay, think of all the cities in Alabama. You know, just here in Birmingham Metro. You know, Birmingham is a screwed up city. We're like Indianapolis was 25 years ago. You know, Indianapolis had about 27 municipalities, about what Birmingham's got. You know, Homewood's got a mayor and a city council and a school district. Vestavia got a mayor and a city council and a school district. Hoover, Center Point, Pinson, Fultondale, Gardendale, my God. And then you got all this. A city does not have blanket authority to come up with their own police powers. They're given that authority from the state. And they're given that authority from the state via a piece of legislation called enabling acts. I don't understand the words, enabling, you know, whatever. I get on board with what the hell they're trying to sell me. So that permission to come up with their own police powers comes through the enabling acts. Top, as we're progressing, eminent domain. Guys, when we ride around on roads, highways, county roads, we're riding over what used to be homes, used to be playgrounds, used to be churches, used to be shopping centers. Because at some time in the property's past, the government has said, we need a road and we need it going right down through there. So they're going to have to go acquire all the property in that path. Now, let's read that. Highlight the whole paragraph. Eminent domain is the right of government to acquire privately owned real estate for public use. More often than not, it is for roads, but it could be for a library. It could be for a park. Could be for a prison, airport. But in the second sentence, I want you to highlight, circle the word condemnation because you've already highlighted it. I want it to stand out to you. Condemnation, circle it. So check it out, y'all. Did y'all think up until now that a condemned building was because it's fallen in on itself? Because that's what I thought about for years. And that is a reason that the government will condemn a building. But it's just one of many reasons. Kind of like a tenant is a renter, but a tenant's anybody that has an interest in property. A condemned building is the government taking ownership of your building because you didn't do something they said do. And a lot of times, you ever notice downtown in cities, there's old buildings, downtown Birmingham, we got old 10, 15, 20-story buildings, been empty for 20, 30 years. They're often owned by companies out of state. And those companies out of state, they're just using it as a loss, frankly, or they're waiting for some development to take place, some excitement so they can take advantage and come in there and redo the building, whatever. But a lot of times these old abandoned buildings, the doors and windows break, and the government don't want that because kids can get in there, to smoke their hippie, and they might build a fire, they drinking, falling down elevator shafts, So the government will send a letter to the owner saying, fix this. And if they don't within a certain period of time, the city will take ownership of it. The legal process of the city taking ownership of your property because you didn't do something they said is called condemnation. So check out how this is the question everybody misses, even though this is a fairly simple concept to understand. Listen how similar these questions could be. What do you call the right of government to take someone's property when it's been determined their property could best be used to serve the public? Eminent domain. What do you call the process of taking someone's property if it's been determined that that person's property could best be used to serve the public? Condemnation. The right of government is condemnation. The taking of the property is, the right of government is eminent domain. The taking of the property is condemnation. So let me repeat it again. What do you call the right of government to take your property? Yeah. What do you call the taking of your property? Condemnation. Don't make a 69 on this exam and that question be the one that kept you from the gates. Guys, I don't know if you're competitive. I am. I'm a guy, and girls are competitive. A lot of them. Some of them ain't. Some guys ain't competitive, but get competitive. Like you playing 21 with your best friend. Get competitive with this material. Who are you competitive with? The damn nerd that wrote the exam. In your mind, you ain't going to let him beat you. You got to be hell-bent, man. You got to be hell-bent not to let some nerd whip you with a piece of paper. On the taxation, as we flow through the chapter, is not something I'm going to talk about right now. I don't understand why they just threw it in there. But look at the bottom. S cheap. Simple. If I die, leaving no will, leaving no heirs, guess who gets my property? The state. Through the right of S cheat. And what's government good at? Yeah, just do whatever you got to do to get little memory tricks. But we are at our 15 minutes, gang. We are at our key point review. So your job is to spend 2 or 3 minutes cementing what we just rifled through in your brain. Then take the 20-question quiz, doing the flip back. I'll come check on you in 15 minutes. A little bit before we take our next break, but let's move on from our 15 minutes. Unit 4, forms of real estate ownership. I want to tell y'all a story that might inspire you. 1956, in a small town just north of Monroeville, Alabama. 1956, there was a funeral. A woman had passed. It was an old country church. Nobody had air conditioning back then. Windows open. Everybody got a church fan. Pastor has the final prayer. The pallbearers approach from the front of the church. They pick the woman up in the casket and they turn around to walk back down the aisle. And as they were exiting the church, they hit the doorway by accident and they heard a moan inside the casket. They set it down. She was still alive. This was not uncommon back then because embalming was an option. I think it's legally required now. I'm not positive, but embalming was an option. And a lot of country folks, hardworking folks, didn't want to spend the money to embalm. And obviously, medical science wasn't aware of some comas and conditions that we are aware of now. Point is a woman lived 10 more years. And then she died again, or whatever you want to say. And same church. And again, it was August. Hot, windows open. Everybody got a church fan. The pastor says the final words. Some emotional words. Final prayer. The pallbearers approach the casket, pick it up, turn around to go back down the aisle. And as they approach the doorway, God bless them, the father from the front of the church yelled out, "Watch that damn doorway!" All right, page 49, Unit 4, Forms of Real Estate Ownership. We're going to distinguish between ownership and severalty and co-ownership. We're going to describe various forms of co-ownership. Then we're going to talk about key elements of trusts, partnerships, corporations, LLCs, and then common interest properties. Let's turn the page and start that conversation. So, guys, I explained to you yesterday that every single bit of this is a result of disputes that have come before the courts over 240 years. You know, you're a parent. I don't know if I used this example yesterday, but you don't set a rule until something happens often. You'd never told your children don't run through the house, but then your daughter runs through the house, knocks 3 of her teeth out. Now you got a rule, don't run through the house. So squabbles over real estate would come before the courts when the courts were young in our country's infancy. And since the courts would anticipate similar squabbles, they put a rule on it. Now, a lot of students, and I know you've probably been tempted to ask me some, they always have these what ifs to them. Well, what if this happens? And I get that. I'm a curious creature. But the courts are for the what ifs, just like you are with your kids. I've got a rule, don't run through the house. But if I catch my daughter running through the house, but it's to save the dog because he's choking on a bone, hell, I got to forgive that, right? So you can't address all the what ifs in law. The courts are for the what ifs. Do you understand that? So they can use their discretion. So stop doing what ifs in your brain. Stick to the main rule. That's what you want your damn kids to do. You don't want your kids what if in your damn rules, do you? You say, you just do what the hell I say. Do you talk to your kids like that? If you don't, you're wrong. That's what my therapist says. All right, here on page 50, can you imagine arguments between co-owners of real estate? That's why I'm prefacing the subject. You know, a lot of times you can co-own property with siblings. Maybe you inherited property from parents. A lot of times you'll co-own a property with a spouse. Sometimes you can co-own property with other people that you might refer to as investors, because maybe 3 of you own some rental properties, you know. And maybe me and 2 other people own this office building. I'm at about a 40,000 square foot office building. And the 3 of us, one of them wants to put a new facade on the outside and put a new black top on the parking lot, just put some makeup on it. And I want to refinance it, pull some cash out, and let's go buy something else. And my other investor friend wants to sell the damn thing. Just trying to emphasize the point that you got arguments between co-owners. So the law had to determine how you can co-own property. There's always a practical reason why you might choose one form of co-ownership versus another. And because everybody has life situations and given sets of circumstances relative to those situations. And you make decisions based on that current situation. So we're going to talk about the two primary ways to co-own property. A Coca-Cola and Pepsi, if you will. Now, there's many ways you can co-own property. We're just going to talk about the two most common. Did I got something written on that? Yeah. I'm going to kind of put them side by side. They're similar yet different. The reason I'm putting them side by side is so you can visually see. Oh, that was straight for a minute. Still pretty straight. Wow. Boom. They mentioned tenancy in common at the bottom of page 50, and then they come over here and mention joint tenancy on 51. So let's ignore the book right now and just listen to me, and then we'll get in the book and highlight some stuff and make some notes. So check this out, y'all. What I've got up here, joint tenancy, tenants in common. Don't write this down, but more often than not, joint tenants is how family members take title to property. More, but not by rule or law, just the likelihood. And more often than not, investors own property as tenants in common. Not by rule or law, just the likelihood. And let's say my pops dies and leaves me and my three sisters property. I'll give you a story about one of my sisters. What if my sister, and you know, a lot of these scenarios I'm actually pulling from my memory. What if my sister was married to a guy and the guy's referred to as a go-getter? Now, we all know what a go-getter is. But some of y'all don't realize there's actually two kinds of go-getters. See, she graduates from Auburn and gets a job in the Columbus, Georgia school district. And they move into a double wide in Columbus, Georgia. And he was a go-getter because he'd get up in the morning, take her to work at 7, then go home and hit bongs and watch TV all day. And then at 4:30, get in the car to go get her. Now, what if they go through a divorce? Or no, what if my sister dies and she left her interest in property? My dad died and left us to that go-getter. Now, me and my two sisters got to deal with this damn go-getter. So in a joint tenancy, I can prevent the other joint tenants from willing their interest to anybody. Okay? So let me put some stuff on here and then I'll talk. And that's why I created that reason, because that reason damn confirms why you might not want one of the other owners in your co-ownership situation to will it to somebody, because you have no control over that. You just got to deal with the consequences. So here are some of the similarities and distinctions. First of all, let me reiterate. Joint tenants and tenants in common are similar in that they're co-owners. Here, I can prevent you from willing. And this is the primary distinction between this and that. Here is a tenant in common. If I own this office building with 3 other people, the 4 of us own this property as tenants in common, I can't prevent any of the other 3 owners from dying and leaving their interest to somebody or selling their interest to somebody. They can do whatever the hell they want. Here, joint tenants, I can't prevent the other joint tenants from selling their interest, but as I just put up, I can prevent you from willing your interest. Okay? That's really just a clear main distinction. There are some other differences we're about to go over. But here they are. All owners come about at the same time in a joint tenancy, like dad passing and we're getting left the property at probate, all at the same time. Whereas you can add and subtract owners a little bit easier as a tenant in common. You know, like I said, me and 3 others own this office building. One of my co-owners dies. She left hers to her husband. So she's out, he's in. One of my other co-owners sells his interest to another man, and he retires and moves to Arizona. He's out, somebody else is in. You know, so you can flow, add, and subtract a little easier with tenants in common than you can joint tenancy. But this is a requirement. They all come about at the same time. The T stands for title. T-tip is what this is called, T-tip. The T stands for title, and it's referencing the fact that in a joint tenancy, there is one deed, and the joint tenants are listed on the deed. One deed. Whereas tenants in common, there are as many deeds as there are owners. So if there's 4 tenants in common owning a piece of property, they all 4 got a deed. Okay? The I stands for interest, and what it means is every joint tenant has an equal interest. Whereas you can have equal interest as tenants in common, but that would be coincidental because it is possible to have unequal interest. You know, if I'm sitting here continuing with the example, me and 3 others owning this office building, I might own 17%. My friend Randy owns 23%. Our friend Sandy owns 32%. And our friend Gina owns 18%. Okay. So you can have unequal, but you can also have equal. But it's possible to have unequal here. It is not possible here to have unequal. And then the P is possession. And what it's talking about is that if there were a unique situation to where multiple co-owners actually resided in what they co-own, you couldn't take masking tape and start dividing every room. Hey, Jim, you get on your 17% of the living room. And Tim, you can't even use the sink in the bathroom because here's the masking tape. Here's your 23% of the bathroom. That's impractical. It's silly. And frankly, when you have different shares of ownership, it ain't the damn physical structure that's divvied up. It's the money that's divvied up. You see? So everybody would have a right to the whole facility regardless of your percent of ownership. So this is the only one of the 4 T-tip that's true on both sides of the line. So, I just introduced this to you within the last 5 minutes. And I have a feeling you have somewhat a tentative grasp on it, right? A little bit. Okay. Did you hear the masking tape example? Yeah. In other words, if you can't divide the rooms up relative to what percent you own, because it ain't the physical structure, it's the monies. If you sold the property, the monies would be divided up by your percent of ownership, the income from the property, etc., not the physical structure. Your percent of ownership does not represent the physical structure. All right, so here's the problem, though. Here's the problem, gang. I teach you something, and you're going, all right, I'm okay with that, Mark. That makes some sense. All right, yeah. But, they don't give you a question on it the way you learned it, do they? They always got to put a twist on it. So let me help you anticipate a twist. Let's say it's Easter and me and my 3 sisters, the example we used before, my daddy leaving us properties. Oh, I forgot to explain this. Oh, yeah, I forgot to add this. I knew something was missing. The key distinction between the 2, you can put an asterisk below the T-tip, is the right of survivorship. I'm going to explain that. Right of survivorship. So I'm going to explain this, and this goes with this. So, guys, me and my 3 sisters inherit property from my pops when he passes. I've laid that down. I want you to envision me and my three sisters standing before you, and we're holding a glass that's 25% full of water, all of us. The water being symbolic of our interest, okay? I said everybody has to have an equal interest. So 100% divided by 4, 25. One of my sister passes away. We would take her glass and her rights would flow evenly inward to the remaining survivors. Why? Because she can't will it, right? So the point of joint tenancy is for the rights of the deceased to flow inward to the remaining survivors, not outward. Keeping it in the family. Another sister passes, her rights flow evenly. Now, before we were 30, 25, 25, 25, 25. Then my sister passed with 33 and a third, 33 and a third, 33 and a third. My other sister passes. Now we're 50-50. My last sister passes. I'm holding a full glass of water. Look at the top of page 50. I now own the property and severalty. Let's discuss this for a moment. Students have issues with this word. I had issues with this word because you sitting here trying to tell me, Mr. Yarborough, that one means severalty. It does. Students think the word, like me, think the word derives from the word several, but it doesn't. It derives from the word severed, meaning I may have co-owned this property in the past. I don't now. My interests have been cut off or severed from anybody else. I stand on this island alone. So to own in severalty means one owner. And guys, an entity can own property. You don't got to be a human being with a heart that beats. Coca-Cola may have 1 million employees worldwide, but to the law, they're one person. If Coca-Cola buys a property, it's like one individual buying a property. Coca-Cola could own a property itself. So now that I got that out of the way, that's what I had forgotten to talk about. Now let's talk about the wrinkle that they can put into question. So again, me and my 3 sisters, let's say it's Easter and we're at Mama's for Easter potluck. My sister April brings me and my other 2 sisters back in Mama's guest room. And Mama's guest room is just her hoarder room. You can't walk around it. It's just got a crap in it. But she says, y'all, I brought y'all back here because I don't want Mama to hear what I got to tell y'all. She said, I just found out Ricky, her husband, has been online gambling for the last 3 years, and he has officially lost everything we own. Our house, our car. And we're like, holy hell, my God, do you need us to give you refuge? She goes, y'all, I brought y'all back here not for sympathy. I got a backbone. I can stand on my own 2 feet. But I didn't want Mama to hear this. What I'm wanting to ask y'all is, can y'all buy me out? You know, because we're 25, 25, 25, 25, right? Joint tenants. Can y'all buy my 25% out? That'll be a little seed money. I can get us started on something else, put a deposit on an apartment or what. And me and my 2 sisters look at Sis and say, you know, we've been struggling financially. And we're ashamed that we can't buy you out. Now, we'd love to give you refuge and give you groceries, but we can't buy you out. And my sister April says, geez, I thought this trip back to the bedroom was going to fix me up. She said, I kind of anticipated this. Do y'all mind if I sell my 25% to Brittany? Maybe Brittany's an old family friend. She sings in the choir at the church. She's good people. We say, you know what, sis, we're ashamed that we can't buy you out because we want you to be able to lean on us, but we love Brittany. If that's what you got to do to get out of your fix, yeah, we're okay with it. So here's how the scenario exists at this point. You now, in this ownership scenario, have 3 joint tenants and 1 tenant in common. Who is the tenant in common? Brittany. Why is she the tenant in common? She didn't come about at the same time. Y'all, and I heard you, it doesn't have to be family. I just said it's likely, more than likely to be a family situation. But by rule or law, it doesn't have to be family. But do y'all see how that's the scenario where they're wanting to see if you know that? And can Brittany die and will her 25% to somebody?
Yeah.
You damn right. And might that defeat the whole reason we had the joint tenancy in the first place? Hey, yeah. So we're probably going to get Brittany in the car and go downtown to our attorney's office and form a new joint tenancy that includes her. Okay. All at the same time. But guys, they're asking you questions, testing to see what you learned in class. So this is usually the wrinkle that they'll put on this type of question. All right. Did I just go past break time?
Yep.
All right, y'all. Let's do break time, and we're going to do break time to 12:29. back. Hopefully you are back from break. I'm a minute tardy this time. If you're not back from break, virtual students, you can hear my loud voice. So come on back. Guys, before I move on, I was just having a conversation at break with one of my students and wanted to tell you this. Joint tenancy, and I don't know, I wasn't from back in the day, but I read. Joint tenancy used to be called a poor man's will. You know, just like the point I made, the most of America for years has been hardworking folks that ain't got much money, and it costs money to hire an attorney to draw up a will. And then people die, you got probate, you got to pay an attorney to maybe handle or address your issues, protect your rights. And a lot of folks, hardworking folks, don't want to spend that kind of money. So if my intention is to leave my property to my son, but I don't want to draw up a will and pay them, I could just take title to the property as joint tenants with my son, right? So that when I die, it goes to my son automatically. It doesn't have to go through probate. I didn't have to pay an attorney money to draw up a will. So a lot of these forms of taking ownership are to ensure things happen without having to draw up a will and go through probate. Now, can entities co-own real estate? Of course. Could Coca-Cola and Pepsi buddy up and buy a piece of property? Absolutely. Do Coca-Cola and Pepsi, or do two entities have the choice that we do, joint tenancy or tenants in common? No. Entities, I've been told this was on the exam, entities would have to take title as tenants in common. Why? You're probably going to be able to remember this without wasting your ink. Listen to me. You have to have a heart that will stop beating one day to be a joint tenancy. Why? Because of the right of survivorship. Entities don't die physical deaths. So that's why entities could not be joint tenants. They ain't going to have a heart stop one day. So entities would have to co-own as tenants in common. I've also been told this is on the exam. What if the intent of me and my three sisters was to take property as joint tenants, but we or my attorney neglected to mention that on the deed? Well, that accidental omission means that the default position is tenants in common. Okay, so if there were ever some legal arguments over what's going on, the fact that you failed to mention joint tenancy, the default position is tenants in common. Do y'all understand that when I say default? You know, if I were you, I'd maybe Google weird situations involving joint tenancy. You know, that's how I learned. I learned, cool, weird, stupid legal actions involving tenants in common. Why would somebody do tenants in common instead of joint tenants? Now, that's a good question to Google. The why. As a student, you got to know the why. It helps you learn it. Why does this exist? Why does this rule? See why the rule exists. You can see a squabble, an argument. So now we're on 54, or, again, wherever you are, we're progressing. Virtual students, we're on termination of co-ownership by partition suit. So, we started at this co-ownership block by saying that it's fairly common that co-owners can disagree with each other. So if the co-owners just cannot come to a consensus, any co-owner has the right, and I'm not just joint tenants in common, any co-owner can file a partition suit with the courts. Guys, let your vocabulary help you out right here. What's partition mean? That's right. Separate, divide. So if I were to file a partition suit, at that point, we are basically asking the judge to be a mediator, like a parent solving an argument between two siblings. And if the judge can't get everybody to agree, the judge is probably going to say, y'all, I'm just going to force the sale of the property, and then y'all take the proceeds, take your percent, and go to the damn corner. Argument's over with. Force the sale of the property is usually the solution to the problem. But I just want you to know, any co-owner You know, when they get upset with the other co-owners, they can file a partition suit. So again, we started out this block by saying that there's many ways to co-own. We just talked about the two most common, Coca-Cola and Pepsi. But you know damn well when you go to the grocery store, there's about 89 other sodas in the freezer. So just because Coca-Cola and Pepsi are the two most common, don't mean there's some other sodas we need to know about. So you see ownership by married couples. Alabama does it, but some states mandate how spouses take title to property. One of those is tenancy by the entirety. See, again, here we are using the word tenancy, and it ain't got nothing to do with renting. Go 5 lines down in there and highlight the 5 words. Have the right of survivorship. We're in that paragraph. Have the right of survivorship. About 5 lines down. 5 or 6. So let's talk about it. Me and my wife, we are forced to take title by the entirety because we're in one of them states. Basically, the state is saying that me and my spouse are a single being. And I am deserving of her half, and she's deserving of my half. And neither one of us can do anything with the other's half without the other knowing it. Like my wife could not go will her half to her mother. I'm going to get her half. She's going to get my half, and I can't work around that. Is that not a right of survivorship? If she passes, I get it, vice versa. Right of survival. Only 2 parties until they allow polygamy, which I can see that coming in the next 5 to 10 years. I think I could get on board with polygamy. Community property is the other. There's 2 ways that states can mandate how spouses take title. Tenancy by the entirety, 1. Put a little 1 right there and circle it. Just helps clear your thinking. Then put number 2 right by community property. Right by number 2. There's 2 ways that some states mandate how spouses take title. Tenancy by the community property. So here's a community property state. Let's say I'm dating an old girl and we decide to get married and she owns 2 properties. As an adult, she's acquired 2 properties in her life. She brings them into the marriage. I have acquired 1 property in my adult life. I bring that into the marriage. Okay. The I-do's are said. And then throughout our marriage, we acquire properties. And then comes the inevitable divorce. At least it's inevitable in my life. That's community property is thought to be the most equitable way to handle the dissolution of assets. And if that was a bunch of fancy words for you, in a divorce, what the judge does is he throws all the couple's assets into a big pile and then starts divvying. You get a little of this, you get a little of this, you get a little of that, you get a little of that. So in a community property, remember I said she brings 2 properties into the marriage. I bring 1. And then the marriage takes place and we acquire property. So at the time of our divorce, the judge is going to throw all the assets into a big pile. But he's going to take the 1 property I brought in and separate it from the pile he's going to divvy up. And he's going to take the 2 properties that she brought in, separate it from the pile that he's going to, and the pile that's left is 50-50. So any property that I brought in or she brought in at the time of our divorce, the courts are going to refer to it as separate property. Do you see how I use the example? The courts take what I brought in and cut it and separate it from the main pile. They bring what she brought in, they cut it, they separate it, hence the term separate property. And 50-50. Do you see now where they think that's the fairest way to dissolve assets and distribute them? Now, there is an exception to what I just said. There could be an instance where I or my spouse acquire title during our marriage, but at the time of our divorce, it's going to be called separate property. And you'll notice on the second line of the paragraph, separate property, it says acquired by gift or inheritance. So if my wife gets gifted property from her pops or gets willed property from her pops dying, that would be separate property at the time of our divorce, even though that happened during the marriage. And I think you see the reason why. Gift or inheritance from a family member, that's got to be made an exception. Now over here on page 55. Trusted business organizations. I used to wonder how Paris Hilton didn't spend all that Hilton money. Remember when Paris Hilton, some of y'all don't even know who the hell Paris Hilton is. I wish I didn't know. The only reason I knew is because it was stupid. But nevertheless, don't you think people that acquired tremendous wealth have paranoias about leaving it to their damn greedy kids? Because they know they're going to blow it. Yeah, I don't want all my sweat and labor and ingenuity and my business to be pissed away by you because you in Vegas and you live in lodge and buying cars and, so you set it up in a trust. And then I give directions to the trustor on how to send it. Like and a trust doesn't have to be a wealthy person. Trust can be from me or you. I'm assuming you're not wealthy. I'm not wealthy. So it can be for regular folks, but more, you hear a lot of it, rich folks. Within the trust might be stock, might be investment property that's leased out. In other words, the investment remains intact, but continues to produce income. And usually the income is what is paid out monthly to the beneficiaries. The beneficiaries, self-explanatory, they benefiting from somebody dying and leaving a trust. A trust. I didn't ask you to highlight anything. I just wanted to give you a superficial explanation. Not that you didn't understand what one was before I gave you an explanation. In the middle of page 56, you're talking about a living trust. Or they say sometimes maybe called a testamentary trust. Nerds don't say deceased and dead and will. They prefer the word testament over will. But a living trust is really just a way to avoid the estate tax, or sometimes called the death tax. I don't think that a living trust or a trust will ever be the right answer to the question. But guys, the reason I will sometimes give you a superficial explanation of something is because every question has 3 wrong answers. And if you don't know all 3 of those, you're going to be like, my damn luck. The one I don't remember what it means is going to be the right answer, so you choose it. So that's why I'll give you a little brief explanation in case they're offered as wrong answer choices. The bottom of the page, land trust, highlight the last sentence in that paragraph. Land trust frequently created for the conservation of farmland, forests, etc. Maybe I'm wealthy. Maybe I don't have to be wealthy. I don't know why I keep saying that. But maybe I'm wealthy. Maybe I own a lot of land. And, the older I get more concerned with the environment. And I think, you know what? I'm going to set all my land up in a trust that will protect it from ever being developed. That's kind of the thought. Really, it's just a way to avoid property taxes on some property that you ain't never planned on using. But over here on 57, let's start talking about entities. You got partnerships, you got corporations, you got LLCs. And guys, I'm not an attorney and I'm not an accountant, but people ask me all the time, Mr. Yarber, why would you choose one or the other? Well, everybody is their own person. And given the stage of life you're in a different tax situation. But usually why I would choose one entity over another has to deal with the tax consequences and or the risk involved with the business. Because typically you're in your peak earning years between 45 and 55. So I want to take ownership in an entity that's going to give me the most tax shelter, in my 20s and in my 70s, I'm not making a lot of money. So I'm not concerned with saving money on taxes. But let's talk about a partnership. Let's say I live in a small town There's a little grocery store called Abercrombie's. Mr. Abercrombie owns it. It's about like a pig, about Piggly Wiggly, a little one. But it's been the only grocery store in this town. It's always done well. And at the coffee shop one morning, I hear Mr. Abercrombie is selling the grocery store. He's retired. Unfortunately, he outlived his children. So I called Mr. Abercrombie and I say, you want to meet me for coffee tomorrow? I'm interested in buying your store. So he brings his financials. I look at them and I like them. So I call my three buddies, the four of us. We get involved and invest in some things here and there. I say, y'all, Mr. Abercrombie's selling his grocery store. Y'all want to get involved? He's selling it for $2.5 million. He said he's willing to own or finance. All he wants is $120,000 down. And we can pay the balance back over 10 years. They say, Mark, you're the real estate guy in our group and the business guy. We do other things. You do that. If you like it, we like it. So I say, okay, I need a $40,000 check from all three of you. 40, 80, 120. Notice who's not putting up any money. Me. So we're going to call this a limited partnership. And in the limited partnership, you've got X number of general partners, X number of limited partners. My three buddies are going to be limited partners. I am the general partner. Typically, the general partner is the one that runs the business. The limited partners write checks. Guys, limited partnership is very conceptually similar to buying stock. Do you know, and I didn't know this until I was in my mid-20s, when you buy one share of stock of a company, you can call yourself an owner of that company. I mean, you got a very small ownership, but yeah. I remember buying a share of Disney after I heard that. It cost $262. That was 25 years ago. And I gave that one certificate of stock to my daughter for Christmas. She was young. But when I found out you could call yourself an owner, I remember being at a ball game party. And somebody's like, man, did y'all see that new 101 Dalmatians? Boy, Disney did a good job on that. And I said, we worked pretty hard on that. Yeah. But anyway, when I buy 10 shares of Walt Disney stock, can I start showing up at Disney board meetings and saying, hey, let's try a new ride? No, they're going to call security on me. All they want is my money. They did not want my input. You understand that? That's a limited partner. I don't want your damn input. He might say, can we do double coupons on the third Sunday of every month at the grocery store? I'd say, that's a nice idea, but shut up. I run the business. You write me checks when we need money. So have you ever heard a limited partner called a silent partner? See, I've been talking to people and they're like, oh, my dad's a silent partner and that. I'm like, silent don't mean it's a secret, dummy. Silent means shut the hell up. Limited partners have no input to the business. It's effectively buying stock. They are providing the capital that the business needs. Well, why do they call it a limited partnership, Mr. Yarber? Well, here's why. Notice I didn't put up the money. They did. But let's say one day, little Billy, he's a fan of Peter Pan, peanut butter. And I keep the Peter Pan on the top shelf. Little Billy's a small little tyke. So he's trying to climb the shelves, and he pulls the whole damn aisle on him, kills him dead. The family sues the grocery store, and they win this lawsuit for $3.7 million. And I have auditors come in, and all the store and the equipment and the cash on hand is only worth $2.3 million. But they sued me for $3.7. Where are they going to get that other $1.4? From the general partners. Didn't we talk about everything's give and take? I didn't have to provide the working capital, but as a general partner, I assumed the greater risk. Because the reason they call it a limited partner is in such a situation with a lawsuit like that, they ain't got to pay out. Their risk in the business is limited to what they currently have invested. They would not be liable in such a lawsuit. Okay? So that's why it's called a limited partner. Their risk is limited to what they already have invested. So let's move to a corporation. Let's put a twist on it. Let's say me and my three buddies took ownership of the grocery store as a corporation. Same thing. Lawsuit, $3.7 million. The kid dies from the peanut butter. And again, the store only $2.3 million. All the equipment, cash, store, real estate. Where they going to get the other 1.4? They're going to come after me and my three buddies' personal residences, 401k, insurance, whatever. Our assets. Guys, if you owned a business, do you want your personal assets at risk? Hell no, you don't. I want my personal life separate from my business life. That's the reason a corporation. A corporation is a wall around the officer's personal assets. Can you imagine owning Hasbro? Being a CEO of Hasbro? You think Hasbro gets sued a lot? Y'all don't even know who the hell Hasbro is? Toy company. You think youngins get hurt by toys? They probably get sued a damn million times a year. I would not want to be involved with Hasbro if my personal assets were at risk. So a corporation. But the problem is you can't have your cake and eat it too. You got to pay one of the highest corporate tax rates in the world. A lot of people call corporation double taxation because here's the way it works. Here's the corporation. What the hell? That's supposed to be the front wall. That's the doorway. When the income enters the corporation, as it passes through the front door, it gets hit with the corporate tax. You ain't got to write this down. This is just FYI. It gets hit with a corporate tax. And now whatever is left, this much went in, and this is all that's left. And now we're going to income tax that. So you got to pay the corporate tax entering, and then you got to pay income tax. Now you see why they call it double taxation? So why do you think factories have left our country? We have the highest corporate tax rate in the world. How in the hell would you sell something out of Muncie, Indiana, when you can go to China and pay people 20 cents a day and have no corporate tax? That's why all of our industry has left. Corporation protects the officer's personal assets. Now, LLC, there's two questions I've heard on the exam from LLC. An LLC is similar to a corporation in that it protects the owner's personal assets. But what I'm hearing from students is they'll say, what is an LLC also referred to often as? I'm going to use the text version abbreviation of the word through. It's called a pass-through entity. Because the income, when it passes through the front door, it does not get hit with the corporate tax. It enters freely. It passes through without getting hit with the corporate tax. Well, what's your tax rate? Your normal, ordinary income tax rate. There's no separate corporate tax rate. So I've heard that. Pass through entity. You can write that in the left-hand margin. Pass through entity. And now you see why. The income passes through the front door without getting hit with the corporate tax. I've also had students tell me, there's a question that says, what does the C stand for in LLC? Well, it is right there. So very good. I thank you for that. He was the only brave one to tell me what the hell was right in front of him. But what do you think a lot of people would naturally think? Exactly. And I guarantee you choice A going to say corporation. So company. So we got two questions right there. Perhaps pass-through entity and C for corporation. All right, here we are on 59. condominium ownership. We talked yesterday about the fact that the condominium is a way to have our cake and eat it too. You get some of the conveniences of apartment, but you also get the tax advantages of the building of equity. Here's something interesting you might not know. You don't own a condo, you own a unit, but it's a slang way of speaking that's acceptable. But let's say there's a 100 unit condominium complex. I purchased one unit. I remember seeing old people do this my whole young life, and now I'm doing it, burping all the time when you're. Let's say I'm traveling down the road, heading to my condo. I put my blinker on. I pull into the complex. I go in a little bit. I put her in park, and I get out. I own 1/100th. Why am I using 1/100th? Because I said there's 100 units, and I bought one. I own 1/100th of everything I can see, touch, and feel from this point. I own 1/100th of every blade of grass. I own 1/100th of the pool. 1/100th of the exterior of all the buildings. I don't even own the exterior of my front door. I own 1/100th of it. But when I put the key in, turn it, open it, I own the inside of my door in fee simple. I own the interior of my unit in fee simple. I'm responsible for the interior of my unit. The association is responsible for the exterior of the unit. Now, I contribute to the property's maintenance through my monthly condo dues, but I don't own the exterior. But have you ever heard the outside of the condo called common areas? Now you understand why. I own, as a tenant and common, a piece of all the exterior. The only thing I own in fee simple, the interior. But what I hear is on the exam is the second sentence under condominium ownership. It's page 59 in my book. It might be 58 or 60 in yours, but condominium ownership, the second sentence says, condominium laws are often referred to as horizontal property acts. That's what I want you to know, horizontal property acts. I don't understand where they got that from. I understand what the word horizontal means, but I don't know why that applies to a condo, because they come out of the damn ground vertically. I don't know. I just play by their rules. Yeah, and the next couple of pages, next page is interesting to read, not important. So now I want you to look at cooperative ownership. And guys, we are at our last break, but since class goes to 1:30, we're just going to skip it and keep trucking, okay? You good with that? Of course, you're all grown folks. If you got to go, you got to go. Cooperative ownership. I don't expect you to remember me saying this yesterday, but the cooperative form of legal ownership came about 100 years ago during the Depression. It was a way for poor people to collectivize their money and purchase property. You know what the whole country was during the Depression? Poor. Most states had 40% unemployment. It was a terrible time. But over time, it's how well-to-do people, especially uber wealthy. Can you imagine being Oprah and going to Starbucks every day and you got to sign 20 autographs and take 30 selfies? It would get old. So uber wealthy people, they kind of only want to live amongst themselves, so they ain't got to put up with all the fame and, all that stuff, paparazzi and all that. So, they'll have an apartment building. And when we say apartment buildings in Philly, New York, Boston, they ain't apartments in Alabama. These are fancy. So you may have a 70-story apartment building that's a cooperative, meaning it's a corporation. And if you want to live in that apartment building, the board of owners would determine if you're worthy of living amongst them. And that's probably going to be how much money you got. Once they rubber stamp you, they allow you to purchase stock in the corporation. Do y'all know what the word proprietor means, virtual students? Say it loud and proud. You don't know?
Is it so owner?
It means owner. If I'm standing in the middle of a hardware store and I'm saying, I'm the proprietor, I own the damn joint. So look within the cooperative ownership paragraph, and in the very, very, very middle of the paragraph, highlight receives a proprietary lease. Receives a proprietary lease. Do you remember where I said if they approve of me, they're going to let me buy stock in the corporation? Remember that? Do you remember me saying earlier, when you own stock in a company, you're an owner? And what did we say the word proprietor means? So by virtue of your ownership of stock, you get permission to occupy a particular unit for your life. Proprietary meaning you're an owner. You own stock in the building, Mark. So we're going to give you permission to occupy a unit in the form of a lease, proprietary lease. Associate cooperative and proprietary lease. Because if one's in the question, the other's going to be the answer, or vice versa. Okay, you see proprietary lease in the question, just look for cooperative in the answer choices, or vice versa. Okay, on 62, really nothing in there important. I don't feel the need to talk about timeshare. When I took this course in 87, timeshare shared our license. We had to know a little bit about timeshare. Not much, but a little bit. But they have now separated from us. Timeshare got their own license, so we really don't have to know a lot about them. They still put some crap in there every now and then. But here we are. We're at our 15 minutes, and we're going to do them. So I got 102. At 117, we'll be done. While you're so go ahead and begin. You got 15 minutes. Like time has come to the end today. We've got 4 chapters. There's only 21 chapters. We're almost 25% through. Not quite. Nevertheless, you got some meat to chew on for the next 5 days until we meet again. So hopefully you get some studying done. You have a good weekend, and we'll see you Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Hey, gang, let me go ahead and tell you, virtual students, the best way to get in touch with us when you got questions is on our My Real Estate Schools Facebook page. I hope you visit it. We also have an exam prep page where students will ask questions and talk like a discussion board. If you would follow them or like them, that way any news we put will show up on your news feed. But yeah, message us there. You'll get quick responses, quicker than email. But regardless, have a good weekend. We'll see y'all Tuesday at 10 a.m.
And I'll give it to you until you see it in the class. Actually, where I go small or big, you said.
Oh, yeah.